Hey everyone, if you are a fan of movies, then you've probably definitely heard of the distribution company A24, especially after these last Oscars where they kind of swept. I've been a fan of A24's for a while now. I remember watching movies in high school that had their logo at the beginning, and I remember piecing it together that, hey, if that logo's at the beginning of the movie, I'm probably gonna like it. And then that just kind of grew into like fanboy-like behavior, where now I am kind of bowing to their will and I purchase most of their memorabilia and I watch every movie I really get a chance to watch. So I was sitting and thinking, what video should I do? And I decided that I want to rank every A24 movie that I've seen. I haven't seen a lot of the newer stuff, and I haven't seen a lot of the lesser known stuff. So if you're expecting me to put The Whale somewhere on this list, it's not going to be on there because I haven't seen it. These are going to be in no particular order. Also, I should mention my tier rankings. At the top, we have Masterpiece, which is the movies that I would define as being basically perfect, that I would make little to no changes to. Then right under that, we have Great, which are movies that I think are fantastic, but not quite masterpiece worthy. And then we have Good, and then we have Mid, and then we jump down to Poo Poo. These are movies that I think are poo-poo garbage, and I would probably never watch again. And then under that, we have Don't Remember What Happened, which are the movies that I've seen, but it's been a while, and I don't remember what happened. And then under that, we have the bottom tier, which is Why on God's Green Earth? Why was this movie made? Why did anyone see it? First up, we have Lady Bird. I really enjoyed this movie. It was the first A24 movie that I showed to my wife whenever we were dating. I think Greta Gerwig's direction is really good. I don't know if I would call it a masterpiece. We're going to put Lady Bird in Great. The Lighthouse, masterpiece. 100% a masterpiece. And if you think it's anything else, go check yourself. 8th Grade, masterpiece. 8th Grade is not only funny, it is a fantastic directorial debut from Bo Burnham. Really great movie. I wish that movie was around when I was that age. A Most Violent Year, mid. Movie's pretty mid. Jessica Chastain and Oscar Isaac do great, but the writing, not too great. Next up is Krisha. Great, I like it. I think it's a great directorial debut from Trey Edward Schultz. One of my favorite things about this movie is on the Blu-ray, there's a bonus feature that's like a behind the scenes, making of type thing, and seeing how much love and passion was put into it and how he got his family involved. It's really just his friends and family all coming together to support him in this goal of making a movie, and the movie's fantastic. I really, really like it. It's just anxiety inducing. It sends you through the ringer. Next up is Swiss Army Man. I think Swiss Army Man it's great, man. Everything about it, I love. I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece because the Daniels were still kind of finding their footing, I think, stylistically. But everything from the acting to the soundtrack, everything about it, I think is really fantastic. A Ghost Story. If you have not seen A Ghost Story, fix it. This movie is a masterpiece and a half. I find it to be such a beautiful study of eternity and how this movie really uses long drawn out sequences to really just drill in the fact that eternity is forever. The past and the present and the future are all just so spread out but yet so close together. It's a very weird poetic way to tell the story, but I really, really love it. And I remember we watched it in my college dorm room. Me and a bunch of guys just sat down and watched it, and by the end of it, all of our eyes were wet and jaws were dropped. It's a fantastic movie. Next is 20th Century Woman. It's a good movie. That's about it. Next up is The Hole in the Ground. This movie is poo-poo. Sorry. It tries really hard to be scary, but it's really just boring. A Prayer After Dawn. This movie was good. I like what they did in terms of the filming style and how they filmed in a real prison in Thailand. There's a lot more style than substance, I think, in this movie. Next up is a sleeper hit, The Last Black Man in San Francisco. This movie is a masterpiece. It put Jonathan Majors on the map for me. I really, really love this movie. Stylistically, it is unlike anything I think in the A24 catalog. It has such a distinct visual style and aesthetic. Everything about it, I think, is just 10 out of 10, knock it out of the park. The story made me cry. The performances left me in shock. Really, really great film. Next up is The Lobster, which I would probably say is great. There's some bits in the middle of The Lobster that kind of drag for me. And the same goes for the next movie, which is Killing of a Sacred Deer. I also think is great. I love those movies equally. I think they're a great little double feature if you watch them together. But neither of them, I think, top Dogtooth or The Favorite. Next up is The Florida Project. This is a tough one. Here's the thing with Florida Project. I love it. I think stylistically it's beautiful. Willem Dafoe is amazing. The performances and the story are really good. However, the last 30 seconds of the movie completely take me out of the movie, where they cut to iPhone footage. It really just takes me out, and I think it loses quite a bit of points. It would be a masterpiece if it weren't for those last few seconds. So I'm putting it in the great category. Next up is Cher. I don't remember what happened in that movie. I remember watching it, don't remember what happens. The Captive. This movie's poo-poo. Next up is Skin. It's a good movie. Skin is a good one. I think it's one of those more under the radar A24 movies. So if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. Next is The Death of Dick Long. This movie's mid. It's stupid. It's a really stupid movie. One of the Daniels, I don't think both of them were involved in it, but it's just a stupid, turn your brain off dumb movie. Next up is The Farewell, which I thought was great. This movie, I left it crying, and I was by myself in a theater. I cried, I left the theater, and then I called my grandma, which I think everyone did after seeing that movie. Farewell is a really, really great movie. Awkwafina at her best by far. That really put her like on the map for me. Next up is Green Room, which I would consider a masterpiece. Anton Yelchin's best work, rest in peace. Next up is Room. I really liked Room when I saw it the first time, but after a few viewings, it kind of loses its luster. So I'm gonna say Room is good. I might get a lot of hate for that one. Ex Machina. Ex Machina is great. It's a great film. I just think it drags a little bit. There's some slow bits to it. Next up is In Fabric. I remember watching this, but I don't remember what happened. I don't remember what happened. I remember the dress kills people, and it is a very interesting concept, but it's done surprisingly well. I remember being like shocked at how not overly cheesy it is. Next up, we have Climax. Poo-poo. Sorry, didn't like it. It's just, I don't care about dancing that much, I guess. I'm not a dancer. And there's a lot of it. Sorry, poo-poo. Next up is The Ballad of Lefty Brown. Watched it, and I don't remember what happened. Sorry. I think I fell asleep, honestly. Next up is Obvious Child. Mid. Pretty mid movie. It's good. Jenny Slate is funny. It's a good little like dark comedy. It just seems like a big studio movie to me. There's bits of it that feel like an overproduced like Hollywood comedy, and that's why it loses some points for me. Hereditary. Me, like a lot of people, really love Hereditary. I've seen it once in theaters, and it has stuck with me so much since that I haven't needed to watch it again. I love it. I own it. I have the screenplay book. I have a shirt, and I've only seen it once. And so for that, masterpiece. I think Ari Aster struck gold when he made that, and I like where his career's gone, and I'm really excited for his next movie. Next up is The Blackcoat's Daughter. I remember liking this, but I don't remember why. So, good time. Boop. Matt. Great. Sorry. Good time's great. I thought it was a masterpiece, but then I remembered Uncut Gems, and I like Uncut Gems more than Good Time. But Good Time and Uncut Gems are like this. They're like this. Next up is Hot Summer Nights. Mid. Half-Life? I don't remember. I remember the dogs. I remember the weird saddle, if you know what I'm talking about. And I remember Robert Pattinson. And that's it. I don't remember what the story's about. I don't remember what happens. Oh, Andre 3000's in it. And he's growing vegetables. I remember that. Moonlight. Barry Jenkins. Boom. Masterpiece, dude. Next up is The Witch, Robert Eggers. The Witch is good. I think it's great, but it loses a lot of points for putting me to sleep. It's real. The first act drags so hard. It's not until like the last half of the movie that I really get invested, and then the spooky stuff starts happening. I know a lot of people are going to come out of the woodworks to throw hate at me for putting it in good, but that's just how I feel. Sorry. Next up is Free Fire. This movie's mid AF, dude. Enemy. Enemy is great. Enemy's great. I think Jake Gyllenhaal does some of his best work in this movie. His performance is in the subtleties, and I love it when actors do that. First Reformed. This movie is divisive. I'm putting it as a masterpiece. I think it's fantastic. Whenever First Reformed came out, it was like my favorite movie of that year. Slow burn, which is weird because I know I knock a lot of points off for movies being slow burns, but there's a difference between a good slow burn and bad pacing. First Reformed, I think, is a fantastic slow burn that has an insane ending, and an ending unlike anything I've ever seen. Like, I won't spoil it and say what happens, but if you've seen it, you know, and wow. Under the Skin. Under the Skin is good. Yeah, I mean, it's ScarJo and she's an alien. It's got some creepy bits in it, but it doesn't really expand on a lot of stuff that, like, I really wish it did. It's a beautiful movie. I think it looks really great. And all the stuff at the beginning where she's trying to pick up dudes in the car and that all being, like, real people, I think is interesting. But, yeah, substance-wise, there's not a lot going on. Next up is The Green Knight, which I would consider a masterpiece. There's not much more to say about it other than it was my favorite movie of, what, last year? Did it come out last year? When did Green Knight come out? 2021. It was my favorite movie of 2021. Next up is It Comes at Night. Mid. X. Now, I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this one because I know a lot of people like this movie, and I haven't seen Pearl yet, and I've heard that one's better than X, but sadly, I'm gonna have to put X in the Why on God's Green Earth category, because I hated this movie. I think there's nothing in it that is visually striking. I think the writing is generic and boring and lame. It was mid for a while, but then the more I thought about it and the more I sat on it, I was like, dude, I really hated that movie. So yeah, X gets Why on God's Green Earth for me. So let's get the bad taste of that out of our mouths with The Tragedy of Macbeth, which I think was good. It's Shakespeare, and I'm very rarely going to be like, you know what? I want to watch Shakespeare. If you're going to watch it, you really have to, like, be into it, and I'm not going to be that a lot of the time. So because of that and its lack of rewatchability, I think it's good. Next up is First Cow, which I also think is good. Next up is Disaster Artist, which I also think is good. Next up is Funny Pages, which I thought was great. Next up is After Yang. I thought this movie was great as well. I think it's a very interesting look at the future, and like AI, Android technology. I don't think I've seen anything quite like it. Yeah, really, really good movie, and I think it kind of went under the radar for a lot of people. Didn't get as much love as I think it deserves. Next is Red Rocket, which I thought was good. I just want to know who freaking gaslit Sean Baker so much to where he can write a character this horrible but still make him somewhat relatable. Next up is Uncut Gems, which I would consider a masterpiece. It is currently my favorite A24 film. I don't know. Well, it's either first or second. It's a close call between a lot of these up here in the masterpiece section. But Uncut Gems is the one I've definitely probably watched the most and still get a ton of enjoyment out of it every time. Next up is The Monster, Why on God's Green Earth. It's a cool, low-budget little monster movie, but it is so boring. Oh my gosh, it's so boring. The practical effects of the monster itself were cool to see. It's cool to see little indie filmmakers still doing cool practical monster effects, but didn't make up for a horrible story, not great acting, didn't love it. Next up is Zola. Zola was good. I think it's a cool story. I think all of the performances were great. However, the story that it's based off of had, like, the whole Twitter thread thing. I think reading the Twitter thread is more interesting than the movie. But visually and everything, Zola was good. I liked it. Next up is Under the Silver Lake. This one is a sleeper hit, in my opinion. I am putting it in great. I think it's fantastic. I know a lot of people don't love it, and a lot of people have very mean things to say about this movie, but I remember watching it and being extremely impressed with it. I think Andrew Garfield does his best in this movie. Again, just like a sleazy sleazebag character that somehow we can relate to, and the mystery aspect of it all, and this like weird unveiling of like the seedy Hollywood underground, I thought was super interesting. I really loved it. Next up is Mississippi Grind. It's got Ryan Reynolds and Ben Mendelsohn, and that's all I remember. Midsummer, I think, is great. I think it's not as good as Hereditary, and whenever I first saw it, I genuinely didn't really like it the first time, but the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, well, maybe I do like it. And then I watched it again, and I was like, oh, no, yeah, no, I love this movie. I think it's awesome. Next up is Mid-90s. Mid-90s is good. I think is a really good directorial debut from Jonah Hill, and I think he found something really special in this group of kids. I think I loved it more when I first saw it, and as it's kind of aged, it's lost a little bit of its luster for me, but I think it still holds up as being like a good movie. I think the ending's fantastic. The kids, like the chemistry between all of them is really great. Next up is The Humans. I watched this one recently, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think all of the performances are great. The writing is great. I love these like plays turned movies. Part of me wants to put it in mid just because I don't think I'll ever watch it again, because it really put me in a funk, but I know it deserves more than that, so I'm putting it in good. Next up is Waves. Waves is a masterpiece, in my opinion. I don't think Trey Edward Schultz is ever going to do better than he's done with Waves, because wow, wee wah. Fantastic movie, and it really didn't get any love. It got none of the love that it deserves. And so if you haven't seen Waves, I think it's on HBO or Netflix or something. Please go watch it because it's so good. Next is While We're Young, or When We Were Young. I forgot what this movie is. I don't know. I don't remember that movie. I remember freaking Adam Driver wears that stupid ugly fedora through the whole thing, and I hate it. Next up is Spring Breakers, the one that started it all, or whatever. I hate it. It's poo-poo. I don't like it. Men. I loved Men. I thought it was great. I think Alex Garland. I think Alex Garland is an incredible director, and I everything he makes, I think he just knocks it out of the park, and I can't wait to see what he does next. Out of this and Ex Machina, though, I don't know. I love them both for different reasons, but I still think Annihilation is his best movie. That's just not an A24 movie. Next up is Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Mid. I don't know. It was fun. It was fun. Had some funny bits. That's about it. Next up is Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Great film. Great film. I cannot wait to show that movie to my children one day. Next up, another sleeper hit, The End of the Tour. This is one that also kind of put A24 on the map for me. I remember seeing this and really, really falling in love with Jesse Eisenberg and Jason Segel's performances. I remember crying in the end. And I don't know, I've rewatched it a few times, and it hasn't lost anything. I love it just as much every time. So for that reason, it is going in the masterpiece section. Next up is Tusk. Tusk, why on God's green earth did Kevin Smith choose to make Tusk? Next up is Saint Maud. Saint Maud I thought was great. I thought it was very spooky. Actually, no. Sorry, I think Saint Maud's good. I don't know if I would say great. Just quickly rethinking about it, like I remember it kind of like having some pacing issues, but I just really loved the ending. I thought the ending was spooky. Next up is The Spectacular Now. That's good. Next up is Come On, Come On. I really liked this movie. This is a tough one because I think parts of it are great, but the movie as a whole I don't think has a ton of rewatchability, and I think it's good. I might get hate for that one. Don't come for me, Mike Mills fans. Next up, The Souvenir I think is good, but The Souvenir Part 2 I think is great. Then we got Locke. He's in a car the whole time, and that's all I remember. Val. Ooh, Val was great. That is a fantastic documentary. They do a really good job of telling his story and really showing, you know, everything he's been through, his like upbringing, and you know how he started his movie career, and then all the stuff in later life with, you know, his cancer and everything like that. And yeah, just really, really good documentary. Minari I think is a masterpiece. I loved Minari. I loved it. It's a really great look and kind of deconstruction of the American dream. And I loved every second of it. Brian De Palma documentary. It was interesting because I like De Palma's work. I like a lot of his movies, like Blowout. He freaking started the Mission Impossible franchise, Sisters, Dress to Kill, and he's got a lot of crazy good like old Hollywood stories, yeah, that I think are very interesting. If you know, desire to be a filmmaker, it's one to watch. And then we have Best Picture winner, Everything Everywhere All at Once, which of course is a masterpiece. And you know, it's been talk of the town for the last couple of weeks, and so there's not much more I can really say about it. That's my A24 rankings. That's all the ones I've seen. There's a lot that I still need to. If there's any of them that I left out that you think I might enjoy that I should watch, let me know. If there's any that are on here that you think are in the wrong spot, let me know. If there's any of them that you think I need to try again. If you're like, Cody, you really need to watch Tusk again, dude. It's so introspective and beautiful. Maybe I'll check it out. Or maybe you're like, dude, Cody, what are you talking about? First Reformers freaking Garbo. It's poo-poo. Wrong, but maybe you're like that. Let me know in the comments, dude. I'll talk to you. I'll mention something. My name is Cody Metcalf. Thank you for watching.
Dinosaur gymnast, man.
The dinosaurs, that's right. The dinosaurs were staring at this. It's 110 million years old. The least.
Fuck basketball,
Can't lean on glass,